If you think of something like a street fight, of course, the quickest thing you want to do is de-escalate and possibly hit and move. It's no different than the military. Shoot and move. You don't want to stay in the same position if you don't have to. That being said, for the profession that I was in previously, having grappling and jujitsu, if you're close enough to somebody that you're using grappling and jujitsu in my last profession, then there better be a finish with a knife or something, because you're not fighting people that you want to walk away from. Well, I think the other thing that was really beautiful about Taekwondo for me was it gave me a community of individuals outside of school and my family. It gave me something else to lean on, conversations that I could have. It gave me a safe space to grow and be how I wasn't anywhere else. I could be aggressive there. My aggression was beneficial there. In school and other things, it was not beneficial. It couldn't be utilized as a tool, but they knew how to mold it into a tool. And I very quickly rose in the ranks, and I very quickly started competing at a high level. I think the first time I fought, I got my black belt at 11. I had my second degree before I was 13. And that's all I did, though. In the morning, I would train. After school, I would train. Sometimes at lunches, depending on if I was going to a national or not, I would train. You would be in weight classes from a very young age. So having to cut weight at the age of 12 is a hard thing to do. And it's really, really hard on the body. It's similar to gymnastics. When you're young, if you start messing with weight, it can have long-term damages for sure. But that being said, I wouldn't change or trade it for the world. The only thing I would trade would be the discipline. I would have preferred something along the lines of jiu-jitsu that's actually practical in everyday application rather than Taekwondo, which is a striking sport. It's less applicable in real life. Say if someone were to grab you on a street, then it would, it depends obviously on the outfit, because if I'm wearing high heels and a dress, I'm not kicking somebody in the face as effectively as I would be if I was in sweatpants and pair of running shoes. But with jiu-jitsu, or even judo, it's way more applicable, or boxing, it's way more applicable. Taekwondo is applicable in the sport itself. And there is some defense aspects to it, don't get me wrong, but from a real life skill, I wish I would have spent, most of my life developing maybe jujitsu instead of Taekwondo.
Yeah, I agree with that in the aspect that it's if someone approaches you violently, if someone starts swinging at you or pushing you, grappling gives you the skill to de-escalate that without incurring damage on the other person.
Right.
And also being able to control the situation and not taking damage or as much damage on yourself in most situations. But I don't know. I haven't been in, anything besides a 20-second shoving brawl, whether it's a baseball field or a bar, nothing that I would call a street fight. Like when I watch videos of street fights on YouTube, I haven't been in a situation that looks like that. It's been just very quick. And I could see the benefit of being able to tie someone up and being able to choke someone. But also a lot of those situations, it does seem like when someone is successful, it's like a very quick punch and run, like a strike and run. And if you are grappling with someone, you get control with the less space that's between you. So that would be my concern, is that if I'm grappling with someone, my number one strategy is to exit as quickly as possible. And that may be difficult if you're in a position where you're wrapped up, as opposed to striking and creating distance.
It depends, because it depends on the situation, the application you're using it for. If you think of something like a street fight, of course, the quickest thing you want to do is de-escalate and possibly hit and move. It's no different than the military. Shoot and move. You don't want to stay in the same position if you don't have to. That being said, for the profession that I was in previously, having grappling and jujitsu, if you're close enough to somebody that you're using grappling and jujitsu in my last profession, then there better be a finish with a knife or something, because you're not fighting people that you want to walk away from. If you're that close to an enemy fighter, it's going to end bad for one of you, no matter what. There is no walk away from that, unless you've taken the other human out.
Yeah, no, and we'll get into this for sure, but for people who are not aware, you served in Afghanistan, you were in the Canadian Armed Forces, and you are dealing with situations in the extremes that are way beyond the average extremes that people were dealing with, on a street fight in Brooklyn, per se. Like you said, you're not looking to walk away from those people because those people are the enemy. Is there an instance that stands out in your mind where grappling entered the situation and that was the primary mode of leading to taking care of that target? Like you disarm that, or you ended it through grappling?
I was attacked by a female once, but it
Mm.
didn't end in grappling. The closest I ever came to something along those lines is when she attacked me with scissors, and I just used a buttstock instead of lethal form.
Mhm.
Um, other than that, I know there are individuals in my community that have utilized things like rocks and other really horrific ways, but it's been life or death. And I know of their
Mhm.
stories. Their stories are not mine to tell, but there are definitely people who have had incidents like that. Speaking of someone, I had Stuart Scheller on the show yesterday, and we were talking about the first time he had taken someone's life with a rifle, and it was point blank. I mean, it happens. It does happen. But fortunately enough, the closest I have ever been was enough to see them from eye to eye to know how far they were to shoot. But the thing about Afghanistan was very tricky is because a lot of the fighters, the majority of the fighters, they dress like civilians. So you could be in a compound where that guy standing right beside you is an active Taliban member, but if they're not trying to harm you at that time, you can't do anything about it. So I have been close to enemy fighters in that sense, but I've never needed to utilize any hand-to-hand. And to be completely straightforward with you, if that were the case, I don't know I would have walked out alive from it, just because of the way that my kit fit at the time. I was quite bulky, and I'm only 5 foot, so it wasn't go fast kit where it was less is more is less, and it was issued kit from the Canadian Army, so it didn't fit me properly, and my arms were about out to here, so it would have been an issue for sure.
So when you're on the ground in Afghanistan and you know that someone is in the Taliban, but they're not engaging you,
hmm
you wouldn't be able to engage that person until they do something or step to you, or something that you view as trying to cause a problem.
Yeah, the Geneva Convention's pretty strict about enemy combatants and what can be applicable at the time. Pretty much unless they're shooting at you or actively trying to set an IED or something along those lines, you're not going to be able to apply lethal force.